Singh, 35 North Ventures, Deepak, MV, Open Play Technologies, Kishan, PSV, and Namit Agarwal, Omega Healthcare Management Services. Please, guys, have a huge round of applause for them. Unfortunately, Kishan couldn't join us today, so he'll be excused today, I guess.
So thank you, and I think we have an incredible panel today here, and I would just give you a bit of a background on each of these people and why we have chosen them. So we have with us Deepak, and he's part of a very large gaming company. You all must have heard about Nazara Technologies. So he runs Open Play, which basically the subsidiary of Nazara. I'm sure in the next 30 minutes that I have with him, we'll get to know more about gaming as a space and what he's building. With me is Ashwani. Ashwani runs a large private equity fund. He says it's a VC fund, but they have a private equity approach to a VC fund, and he has flown in specially from Bombay to do this. And I would sincerely urge a lot of startup entrepreneurs who are out there to spend time from people who've actually come to support us and to meet you all, your ideas. With me is Anupam Pandey, this young female from Anthill Ventures. And Anthill is one of the funds which has done quite a bit of work in Hyderabad. So they really have an incredible portfolio here. I'm not sure if I use the word incredible, but I think a decent portfolio. Yeah. Okay. I have with me Namit. Now, Namit is an entrepreneur who has actually, we're just chatting with him, he's actually sold 3 companies. So we have with us somebody who has seen the entire life cycle of starting a company, then exiting it, and now he's also investing in a few young startups. So it's fantastic, and without further ado, we will just start the panel. I would like to sort of begin with you, Anupam, just like a female on the panel here, and about Anthill Ventures and what sort of keeps you going in terms of the risk and reward when you compare Hyderabad to other cities. What are the trends that you're picking up, especially when it comes to startup investing?
Sure. First of all, thank you everyone for having me. Thank you RizingTV for having me as part of the panel. Now coming back to your question, basically. So Hyderabad, if I compare Hyderabad, from other cities, Hyderabad has always been very welcoming, I would say. So I'm from Delhi, originally from Delhi. Have worked with Nagpur ecosystem, have worked with ecosystem in the north, Chandigarh, and Gurgaon, Haryana, even UP ecosystem is where I've collaborated and worked with those folks. But Hyderabad, in terms of acceptance, has been always welcoming to me. And so I started my journey as a community manager, led a community of social entrepreneurs, started this community by the name of Misfits, which was again a social impact community. Then I moved to Triple IT Hyderabad, worked there as I led the investments part of it, worked with government in the public policy space, led a few initiatives, again, worked with startups in the deep tech, media tech, and med tech space particularly. And then here at Anthill, moved back in Anthill, joined Anthill last year in October. So it's been a year, I would say. And at Anthill, the trends, I mean, because I'm now on the other side of the table, right, as a VC, how we are seeing the startup ecosystem emerging, what are the trends? So we are the consumer-focused fund. We do focus on urban tech and urban lifestyle, but urban lifestyle, which is consumer enablement brands, has been our core focus always. And the trends that we see coming in is definitely the consumer aspect, including AI, including tech, I would say. The tech is cutting across in all the verticals. Whenever it is urban tech, let's say climate, sustainability, real estate, prop tech, then in urban lifestyle, we have anything in the music, beauty, fashion, food and beverage, even in alco beverage space. So we see technology coming across in all these verticals, and we try to always focus on, okay, what's the tech, what are the trends, what are the demand drivers actually, is it really demanding or not, how are the startups coming along, and what are the the research, what's the research involved in that space. That's why we work very closely with academia, where we try to read and go very deep in the research aspect of it. Like, we recently evaluated this company which is building a chat GPT for legal specific, like, because as a non-legal person, I would not be able to review all the documents, or maybe what are the elements, the words, the heavy words that are written over there, right? So this particular app will simplify, will summarize each and everything for you. So something like that we are working, with that company. So I mean, see, yeah, the trends is definitely technology, and it is emerging. So we look for such companies only when we invest in those companies.
Okay. Thanks for that, Anupam. I'll come to you now, Ashwini, in the sense that the kind of companies that you have invested in, this is 2024. It can actually come across that there's a lot of capital available, and sometimes entrepreneurs can really get swayed away by the kind of high valuation numbers. But you really are a fund which has adopted a very, very private equity approach to VC investing, where you say that I want to see predictable returns coming in. So how are you evaluating risk in 2024 when you meet up with companies? Do you feel that the companies really have a pulse of reality, or are they just floating in the air right now somewhere?
I think, Shreya, that's a good question, because while we are sort of coming out of the funding winter, which we saw for the last couple of years. So one of the good aspects which has come about is that there's a bit of sanity even among the entrepreneurs, as well as on the funds which are doing it. And by and large, if you see, it is in the early stage to mid stage, it is domestic money which is going in. So domestic VCs were always focused on returns. Today everyone's talking of profitability. Earlier it was only growth without looking at profitability numbers. So what you mentioned, the illusion is, that's something which today doesn't fly by at all. Earlier you had a lot of people would say, I've passed out from XYZ Institute, I have a great presentation, and hence my company is valued this thing. You would not even know what is it to hire a person, what is it to file statutory returns, monthly returns, PF and all of those stuff. But yes, my company is valued X. And we have seen most of them either morph into more mature models or shut down. Okay. Today what you are saying is, if you look at it, the fact that what Shrija mentioned, that you have 130,000 startups and 4 odd fail. Okay, so entrepreneurship is not for the weak-hearted, and it's also a long-term game. There's nothing that you come in and in 2 years you hear a story. Okay, I've made 10 million, I've made 100 million, and walked out. It's a long haul. Normally, most of the companies which have hit a unicorn take anywhere between 9 to 14 years if they've got their business models right. Okay, so there's no shortcut in success, what they say. In terms of risk, yes, there are two sets of risks which have come up. One is that on the macro side, which is the global turmoils which are there, which are causing disruptions in terms of logistics, supply chains, and other part. And for some of the industries it affects, some of the industries we are insulated. The second part which comes up is the non-availability of quality team members as you expand. So if I were to take an example, if I were to take, say, semiconductors, okay, or chips or anything related to that. Now that's a space wherein you would be hard find to even fill up even half of this room. It's not that we've not had engineers, we've not had people who would be knowing it, but how many people are willing to join an early stage company or take their own plunge or leave aside larger well-known brands to do it is a separate story. So that's where when you're doing a startup which comes up, and whether it's deep tech or others, you're generally finding that the skill set of people are people who have either worked abroad or with very few, some of the larger companies, and want to branch out on them. And that's a very small number. So these are the two big risks which I see in the current ecosystem.
That's very, very well put. I think you've outlined and sort of really put down very well. One, of course, is getting sanity in terms of sectors and valuations. And second, like you put, that maybe the founder is very passionate. The founder has a certain skill set, but you can't build it alone. You need to have a team which backs you. And if you are into deep tech or semiconductors, whatever, like you said, do you have an able team and perhaps team members who are smarter than you, who are backing you? I would now like to come with somebody who has built companies and perhaps sold. Namit, your experience. And I think very beautifully what sort of Ashwani pointed out, that Shrija, team member composition, because if I'm a VC fund, I can be swayed with the founder, but what about the number 2, number 3 that is not capable enough? And secondly, how long term? Are there founders who really have a game plan for long term? Can you really stick for say 10 years, 15 years? Do you have that patience? Because everybody now wants to become a billionaire in like 3 years, 4 years. Like the mother will ask you, unicorn kab ban rahe ho? It's a very funny things, but that is what everybody wants to say. But the reality is very different. I mean, like, did you have a unicorn ever in your entrepreneurial journey?
I wish. No, I don't think, I don't nowhere close to a unicorn. And partly, I have, partly because my first venture was back in 2000, and some in this room would not, would be very young then. But we went through a bubble at that time where everything was supposed to be .com, and then the .com went bust, and we had to reorient to a brick and mortar model, which was a big this thing. And we chose to exit out of that situation with a reasonable return. And 20 years later, a company which was in a similar space as ours recently went public and made a whole lot of money. And we always thought, hey, do you have the resilience to be in that industry for 20 plus years, right? And in our case, we were 3 founders, and we decided no. But if you had stayed in the game. And there are other such examples of other people, friends of mine, who were in a similar, different business, but in a similar position in 2001 and all, and who stuck 10, 12 years. And eventually they, the environment changed, and it was the time for that company to shine. So I think it's a little bit of a personal call that, it happens at many points of your companies or your existence as a promoter, that, and what decision you make is different for different people. And I'll give the latest one, right? So we exited, I started my latest company in 2016. We went through ups and downs. And in 2022, we were actually raising more money because we wanted to buy out some smaller companies and build some scale. And at that point of time, because of our sort of unique technology, come service play, one of the largest companies in this space, they came to us that, hey, do you want to be acquired? And we were not really thinking, we had not actually gone to market thinking about being acquired. We had gone to raise capital to actually become bigger. And that was, at that point of time, again, we were 3 founders. I've always worked with, a couple of founders, never alone. And we discussed and said, what's the right thing to do? Do you exit or you don't exit, right? Because in our case, we didn't have any VC pressure or anything like that. It was mainly our money and friends' money and all of that. And it was a personal call. And we said, yeah, you're getting a very reasonably high valuation and all, that's fine. But it was a personal call eventually made. And then the call we made was very interesting. We said, okay, some of our kids are still growing up. We still have time to enjoy with them. And we have the capital to actually do a few things. Now, if they've already gone to college, right? You might not have that much, you'll have the capital, but you won't have the time, right? If you wait longer, right? And many of us were in that position. And that was one of our board members advised us. And he said, hey, you guys are still young. And so it was a very personal call that we made. Now, we were able to make that call because, and eventually it was I think it was the right call. It was, could we have made more money if we stayed in the game? Could we have gone and become a, that's fine. See, in many cases, you get acquired, now you're part of a bigger organization that has a $500 million revenue organization. It's going to get valued, we have some stock in it, so we'll make some money there. But the point is that answer is a little bit different depending on what stage of life you are on also.
Yeah.
So that was one slightly long answer to what.
Yeah, but I think I would agree to you that in the sense that you spoke about ups and downs. We often hear and get very overawed by the ups in the entrepreneurial journey. But I want to spend the next 10 minutes talking about the downs. And the downs can be very bad. What if the product just fails? What if there's no product market fit? What if your co-founder just resigns? You have a bitter fallout. What if the media starts hating you? What if your next big competitor has raised money from SoftBank? And these are real challenges that you have to deal with. I remember talking to an entrepreneur and he was telling me, Shrija, I don't want to look at the calendar because the calendar reminds me of how much little burn rate I have. If I look at the 30th of every month and I get anxiety attacks. These are real challenges. There are entrepreneurs getting into mental health issues. There are entrepreneurs facing severe sort of backlash from their own family that what you are doing. So what I'm trying to tell you is that we all get overawed by listening about the stories of ups, but there are people who have gone through major downs. And this panel is called about entrepreneurial resilience. If you are an entrepreneur, you have to be resilient. But one thing I'll tell you, it's very good to read books about resilience and grit and determination. But please do one thing. Don't at least lie to yourself. At least to your own self, please be transparent what you know and what you are capable of and what you don't know. At least with your own self, be that transparent. If you don't know AI, and maybe you're the founder of an AI company, please leave it. It's not meant for you. Just because somebody else is raising $30 million and AI is hot right now. Maybe you're a great semiconductors person, but you don't know communication. Please upskill yourself. At least be truthful to yourself as an entrepreneur. What do you say, Ashwani? Are these all right points?
Very much so, because when we look at entrepreneurs and, going back to what Namit mentioned, quite a few of us would be wary of a single founder. Not that it's bad. The point is when you have ups and downs, ups are fine. Like they say, success has many fathers, failure has none. So on that, if you have a couple of other founders, whether you can speak with them, take out, and it's a way which ensures that your mental health remains fine. And there's no business which doesn't see it down. Okay, we are seeing, about 9 of our companies where we would be doing an exit over the next 18 to 30 months. None of their business model is when they had come to us for. Okay. So which means it has changed either because there was a better model, which they did not know when they started, or sometimes the market mentioned. So you started on a model saying that this is what was great for COVID, because everyone was online. Now you suddenly find that, okay, it's a different, like you mentioned on the brick and mortars part. These are sectoral changes, industry-wide changes, which you can't fight. So you might as well then go with the flow. So you have to change your business model. Now that's a very hard decision to make. Okay. So if you have 2, 3, 4 co-founders, at least you can see, okay, whom among us can learn, upskill, can we change it, can we do it? Does it still require 4 co-founders? Would one of us want to find an alternate part because it perhaps doesn't fit with what they start with? So you look at it this way. So you start an entrepreneurial journey in 20s, okay? And you're doing a 10-year haul. 4, 5 years, 6 years down the time, you're hitting 30s. What do you have a pressure from your parents and other? Get settled down. Then you say that, look, I'm still burning money. I have the, okay. Say you started in 30s. Okay, you are then looking at that, okay, I have kids. They would be going to college and others. The fees are something I need to plan for. Because as an entrepreneur, there's no one who takes a fat salary. It's on a very frugal part. And they're the last guys who get paid. Please also remember that. So the government is the first guy who gets paid. And we have people here who can all tell. So government is your first partner who gets paid. The second partner are your service providers, vendors, without whom you can't survive. The third are your employees. And the last guy, if anything is left at the bottom of the barrel, is the founder. Okay. Who may not actually get paid for months. And his team, everyone else is getting paid. And this is not something which would be ever shared. Okay. And so what happens in that case is, how do you go about? And let's take another case. There are a lot of people who are also starting in 40s, done a corporate stint for 15, 20 years, want to now say that, why should I not look at it going out? Now, say they were doing pretty well, which means they were, say, getting a crore odd. They did a journey for 10 years, it doesn't work. So they're hitting 50s. Whatsoever they have saved till then is wiped out. Okay, nothing from, they are starting again at 50. So these are actual things which can happen. So like we were all mentioning, these are risks which are inherent. If you do not have something which can sustain you for 1, 2, 3 years, okay, either from a family perspective or funding perspective, or you have a dedicated initial first client or someone who's helping you along, then you would see why so many startups do also shut down.
Thanks for that, Ashwani. Now I would like to spend some time with Deepak here. And he is somebody who's really building a large company, Nazara, and especially in the gaming space. And I'm sure over their journey, they've had various ups and downs. Nazara has now come up on the curve as a very formidable company, especially in the gaming space. And I would like to understand from Deepak, that whilst we are building open play, and this panel is about entrepreneurial resilience, we have a room full of startup entrepreneurs here. I think it would be worth your while to talk about, of course, the ups that you've had, which a lot of people know, but what really have been the downs, which kept the organization going?
Yeah, so first of all, very happy to be here. I think these kind of forums are very essential. So talking about, I think, Nazara, one fundamental thing is it's born out of the philosophy of creating value, not chasing valuations. I think that's one dramatic fundamental which really creates the DNA of the organization. So I joined Nazara Group a couple of years back. Prior to that, I have myself been an entrepreneur for almost a decade. So the first thing when you enter Nazara, one of the first principles which you are introduced to or oriented to is this philosophy that we as an organization, as a group of companies, are not going to chase revenue at all cost. We are going to build sustainable businesses. Nazara has been there for more than 2 decades. And fundamentally, I would say this principle of creating value at all times, despite you see so many other companies raising millions, valued at $1 billion, burning to create revenue. So despite all that, you have been able to resist the FOMO. FOMO is a big thing in today's time. I think we all have that FOMO. I think being able to have that inner balance and inner conviction to follow this principle, despite the world following different kind of principles, and you stand out in your own corner, but still having that confidence to be in that corner and make it work. And then 20-year journey is for everybody to see now what has been created. So I think that is one thing which I would like to highlight fundamentally, and I think all the speakers talked about it in different ways, that you are building, when you're building a company, you don't see it as a, you don't. And I mean, we have lived in times when we have seen people talk about that I will build it for 3 years and I will exit. I think that that philosophy has also worked for some people.
Yeah.
And that is what we saw becoming a large kind of a bubble, which kind of happens in life as well. It goes to ups and downs. But now with the correction happening, with the reality coming in, I think in a way it's a very good time to kind of see who has really created value versus who have chased valuations. And those businesses are standing out. Nazara, like from the beginning itself, has been found on the principle of chasing value. And at OpenPlay as well, I think as a company, we have gone through a very challenging time in the sense that there has been a lot of regulations which have come in, which have changed the unit economics of the business, and which has kind of created a situation like a VUCA world where things are changing, volatile every second month. And I think one of the fundamental ways we have approached this is to be resilient in a way where we as a team are coming together. And a lot of people talked about, how do you face challenges, especially as an entrepreneur. You somehow have to have this lonely battle. But I think culturally also we have been able to create where all of us have been together in this battle, where we have taken tough decisions and have been able to navigate now.
But Deepak, when you say some of these big things and big statements, that there's a cultural kind of philosophy that we have to create value and not chase valuations, what does it translate into operational realities? Does it mean saying no to things? Does it mean saying no to your VCs, I will not burn? Does it saying that, okay, let the competitor raise money from SoftBank, I will not do this? These are very tough decisions.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's easy to say a principle, but it kind of makes it a reality only when it translates to a lot of decisions, a lot of tough choices, and a lot of operational principles as well. So I think what you mentioned out, some of these things in terms of like, as Nazara, for example, right now we're talking about funding winter, but recently we raised around 900 odd crores. We raised almost 800 to 1,000 crores last year. So our ability as a company to raise money is essentially the credibility and trust which has been built. And this has been built because for all those times when there might have been temptation, and of course I'm new to Nazara, so I'm just saying from experiencing and understanding how the organization has been built. So I'm saying there would be enough and more temptations to kind of raise money and scale up fast. But then you need to follow this principle that you would not give in to that temptation, because unless you are convinced about creating value, not like looking at valuation. So yes, of course, these decisions in terms of investing money, or raising money, or spending money for growth, and growth again, like revenue. I mean, we all have seen the world driven by revenue multiples in the last few years, which has been a weird kind of world, but that's the world we lived in, where profitability didn't matter, sustainability didn't matter, revenue mattered. So I think staying away from those motivation to kind of chase a revenue number at all cost without even looking at how it's going to pan out in the next 5 years, 10 years. So I think long term essentially is a very important lens. As like Nitish, who's our founder and CEO, I think conversing with him, one thing is very clear, that decisions are taken through a long-term lens. There is never a kind of anxiety to do something, for the immediate, to cater to certain, pressures or perhaps market expectations. So I think that's not the way it has been built.
Very nice. That's very well put. And I think, how long-term can long-term be? Like if you ask Jeff Bezos, he'll say 100 years. I'm building Amazon for 100 years. That really is like, there are very few in this world who say building for long-term, meaning building for long-term. I have very specific questions for each one of you now that we're getting towards the end of the conversation, a very lovely conversation here. Very specific question, quick answers on the operational realities of building a company which is sustainable, which, what sort of Deepak pointed out, creates revenues, creates value and not valuations. The first and the fundamental, and I come to you, Namit, for this, is the product market fit. I have started a company, tech company. I'm in love with the product myself. Maybe the market is not accepting it, it's rejecting it. What are the 3 clear signals which I have to be very aware of as an entrepreneur that the product market fit is not happening, and maybe it's time to sort of really get the alarm bells ringing? Yes.
Can you hear me? Yeah. That's a very good question, and a very, very relevant one. So, and my background is a little bit more product cum services, because I come from that background. One thing in general that I would advise is that, and I've done this at a couple of points of time in my life, that when you become an entrepreneur, which industry you go in, right? There is one that you know, and there is one that is sexy, right? Everyone is into it. Oh, fintech is good or something. So, at least for me, I've always chosen to remain in an area that I know, which has been healthcare tech. So, I've invested in others with someone else to drive it. But I think that is important because it actually helps you to know your product. Because I'm going back to what you asked. It helps you because very quickly you are able to latch on to what's working, what's not working, in terms of that. So 2-3 things in our world is that, and we launched a bunch of new products when as a new company you have to do that. Some you have to differentiate and innovate versus the existing. Otherwise, why will anyone come to you? And the few things that the early signals, as you said, is that your first customers, right? For first few customers in that segment, if you're not seeing value with them within the 6 to 12 month time frame, they will not renew with you, right? Typically, those renewal rates, etc., give you a clue. And that is where you have to go back to. And then, second is that I know it might be very early, but something that has worked very well for us is the NPS score. Where you have this, rating of yours. So for someone who don't know NPS, it's basically, now it's very popular in India also, but you ask someone to rate, hey, quality of my service, quality of my product, and only if you are they rate 9 or 10 out of 10, you're considered promoter. And if you are 1 to 4 or 5, I think, you're considered detractor. Now, 5 is not a bad rating, but you're still considered a detractor. The best companies in this space are, like Apple would have maybe 70%, which basically means after taking the ones which are promoting minus the detractor, on the total this thing, what's your percentage, right? So, you call it NPS, you call it CSAT, or you call it raw conversations, but at least in our case, it is more organizations that we deal with. So that kind of feedback is definitely there. And then the third thing is really what you're hearing from the market, right? And keep your eyes and ears open. Is there another competitive product that, hey, you're selling okay, but there's something else which customers are switching to, they're talking more about it. Keep your eyes and ears open and learn from that.
Wow. So basically 3 things. One is the feedback from the customer. Second thing is the NPS score that you said. And if your first set of customers are not renewing, it's basically time to tell you that something is not really working out. I come to you now, Anupam. Yeah. In terms of your focus area, which really is consumer lifestyle at Anthill, and it's really very difficult to build a D2C brand now. I mean, and especially now that I'm spending a lot of my time in Delhi, and which really is the D2C capital of the country right now. I think every female in Gurgaon is selling either soap or a hand cream on Instagram, which even spirits and perfume, which I call the Instagram entrepreneur, which I think Instagram has brought out a social cultural change. All kudos to them. But it's really hard because ultimately it is your credibility at work, right? And when you sort of judge some of these companies, what really you think is the faff and what do you think is the reality? Because I remember talking to a fund and he was telling me, Shrija, that what they do is that even the receivables that they have to get, they factor in as the numbers, as the revenues that they have incurred. right? So some of these things tell you that the motivations of the entrepreneurs are perhaps also not very clean in these times, right? Because there's so much fundraising happening. Everybody wants to be the next Mama Earth. Everybody wants to be that next big D2C company. So what is your advice to people, especially starting businesses in the consumer lifestyle space? Your 3 red flags that, okay, this is a company, even if what high growth it is, I'm not touching it.
Sure. Thank you for the question. Yeah. So basically, when we evaluate any company, be it D2C or be it any other sector, or focusing towards any specific segment, there are 2 main points that we look for. The first thing, there are only 2 types of businesses you'll see, right? First is the companies which fall under sustainable part of it. They are building something which is sustainable, long-term, impactful and all. And then second is artificially sustainable, which is maybe for the first 2-3 years they'll do something big, people will be gaga about it, and then maybe after 2-3 years there will be a situation when they have to shut it down, right? So there are only these 2 categories of the businesses. So then how we evaluate, how do we differentiate between sustainable and then artificially scalable businesses, right? The first thing, definitely, how are you doing your market sizing and market segmentation bit of it, right? When you're in the skincare industry, and you're building a product which is in the personal or wellness or skincare in that category, right? So you basically focus on which is your market segment, how many people can you actually target, what is your TAM, what is your total addressable market, right? And then what do you do about it? How do you research about it? When we speak to these companies, these D2C consumers, sometimes the answers for their market size is very vague. We think that around, this XYZ population would love to, use something like this, or would be interested in spending in something like this, and their spending capacity would be maybe INR 100 for this particular product. So these are some vague answers, or even if these are clear answers, but then they are not backed by relevant sources. So how do you actually do it, right? People go to Money Control to search about, market sizing, segmentation part of it. People go to Statista. But what you can actually do is, when you're in the skincare, maybe you just look for the DRHPs of Mamaearth. If you're in the skincare, look for DRHPs of Mamaearth. If these are like 300 to 400 pages wale documents where you just see what is the market size. And when Mamaearth does it, it is clear, like it is validated, right? If you're in the electronic space, you read the DRHP by Boat. I recently read Boat's DRHP, and it's just very clear and concise, where they've very clearly mentioned, okay, this is the market size for, this particular electronic brand, or this is the segmentation. This population would be interested. In case they want to expand after 2-3 years in US, in UAE, this is the market size and population or revenue growth is what they can expect. So that sort of clarity, and is backed by, you can say that, okay, as per the DRHP by Boat, this is my, research and all of that, right? So DRHPs is always one way to go about it for your market research. So one first red flag would definitely be there's no clarity on the market size and segmentation part of it. Then second, there's no people usually when they start with a problem statement, they build the solution out of it. Sometimes startup founders, entrepreneurs, they forget to properly validate their idea, right? Whenever you're building something like this particular skincare company that we are, we have invested in, I don't want to disclose the name, but they recently launched this sunscreen. It goes by sunscreen by kilo. So their main focus is to, basically, what do you say, launch the dispensing sunscreen machines in like airports, at bus stops, at railway stations and all of that. But then no clear brand positioning. There's no validation bit of it. The sunscreen is not working. Like it is actually not a nice product, right? So the validation part of it, where you validate, you do surveys, you give your products to maybe 10 or 20 folks to use it, and these 10, 20 folks are not your relatives, they are not your friends, because they'll not say bad about it, right? About your product. So second thing is definitely how are you validating your problems and then your solution bit of it. Then third thing is where are you allocating or spending your funds to. Sometimes people think that marketing or brand positioning is one thing that is very, very important for any business to grow. It's wrong, actually. See, your product is the main thing. Whenever you're spending, spend the majority of the funds to your product. Allocate majority of the funds to your product. Your tech part is, your customers would be your brand ambassador if the product does good, right? Your customers are your free brand ambassadors. They'll refer your product and do everything. So never allocate majority of your funds in just marketing and brand positioning side of things. These are important, but then not the main thing to go about it, I would say.
Thanks, Anupam. That was a very long answer. I'll come to you now, Deepak, and then I'll come to you, Ashwani. I think we just sort of way par the time. I'll just take 5 more minutes, but I think it's a very meaningful conversation. Deepak, I'm very interested in Nazara playbook of building a large gaming company, and they've actually done this. I have actually really been watching Nazara's journey for a while now, and I'm interested in understanding the operational realities. So how much do you spend on product? How much do you spend on marketing? And gaming as an industry can be you have users who are fickle. They don't stick to a particular game, right? Tomorrow it is this, tomorrow it could be something else. And your entire business model is set around a game, right? So how much money is going into R&D? How much money is going into assessing market assessment, customer feedback, and then escalating that back into the product? Do you have a playbook? I mean, how organized you are in your thinking in building Nazara like that?
So one is, like everybody knows, Nazara has very diversified set of companies, so there is no one playbook or one, that benchmarks to say we'll spend this depending on the stage of the company, the genre, the segment, and we have gaming, we have esports and ad tech. So what I would do is answer your question from a general point of view.
Yes, yes.
To kind of put it out in terms of what are the guiding principles, so to say. So I think fundamentally one operating principle is data is a big part. So we have a set of KPIs which we swear by, whether it is on the user acquisition side. So when you're acquiring customers, that's one big part of your spends, right? Like how much do you spend to acquire a new customer? So we are all very keenly looking at how much we are paying and what is the LTV of the user, lifetime value of the user. We break it down into M0, M1, M2. So we look at the whole life cycle of a player when they come onto the board. Retention is another very key metric. So retention, we start by looking at D1, D7, D15, D30. So there's a lot of data which we track to ensure whatever we are doing is backed by facts, not by perceptions or intuitions or sense, right? So that is one fundamental principle to say, these are the metrics which we will look at, and we can then go deeper into the metrics. Like you said, gaming is it's entertainment. Fundamentally, it's a creative field. So it's not like a standard businesses like edtech or fintech or some other, e-commerce, because here you're selling entertainment fundamentally, which is backed by technology. But we can't forget that it's entertainment, and you have to move with the changing choices of the players, of the users. And it's a highly engaging kind of a platform. So important there is to create a personalization, because that's where you are able to kind of create that very unique, tailor-made experience for your players, for your for your customers. So I think personalization is something which we are focusing on and trying to see how do we really give them the best experience, whether it's onboarding experience, it's a game experience, it's the platform gamified experience, so on and so forth. So I think that's where we are looking.
So data is at the heart of it, and you usually sort of look at data with a lot of scrutiny every day. That's part of the process.
Oh yes, absolutely. I think whatever answers were said by earlier also, but Namit also, that data, I think the metrics speak for themselves. And that is where you can really sift it out in terms of what is really happening to the product, to the business.
I'll come to you now, Ashwani. I think we've heard all the three. We've heard two entrepreneurs, we've heard one investor, and I think a lot of operational realities are coming to the fore, and I think a lot of guiding principles. And I think all of them blurted out things which are like so real in terms of listen to your customer, don't ignore your net promoter score, don't fall in love with your own product. Like sort of what Anupam said, that even if you are spending a lot on marketing and branding, that does not necessarily guarantee that it's a great product. So you have to be very careful of that. Ultimately, you have to know that what you are selling. If you are selling entertainment or an idea, no matter it is backed by technology or AI, you have to keep in mind who your customer is, and data becomes a very handy tool. I want to come to you now, Ashwini, that when you speak with a lot of entrepreneurs on how they are building out their companies, what do you think are 3 or 4 common mistakes that really happen in terms of either assessing the market size or in terms of ignoring the product market signals, which you think that are coming as very common conversations with your founders? Okay, this is not working out, that is not working out. The common mistakes which are being overlooked by the entrepreneurs.
Okay. I think, a couple of things which you have to keep in mind is that one is, like we were all mentioning, that you need to definitely look at data, but you also have to be conscious of the fact that what is the actual type of data I'm looking at. Okay, you move from 10 users to 14 users, that's 40% increase. But the size itself is so small that it doesn't validate a business idea. Okay. Second part is that, which I think everyone quite mentioned, that you may love your product or service, but if it is not somebody who's supposed to pay for it, who loves it, leave it. It's like, we are in Tollywood. Okay, if you have a picture which you may love, but the masses don't love, it flops, right? So it's the same thing on a business idea, product or service, that the end paying customer needs to look at it. The other part which comes on data and which we look at is, and I think everyone resonated on the same part, is that you look at your retention ratios or repeat ratios. Okay, are they increasing as you're growing or not? So if they are, you are growing but your ratios are falling, which means that your initial data set was wrong. Okay, if both the metrics are keeping space and you're actually improving them, which means that you're onto a good path. Now, these are small things which you can't say, look, there's an exact formula, A plus B and C is equal to X coming up, but you would have to look at what works for your industry. So, for example, you may have saying that, look, I want to set up restaurants which give multiple cuisines. Okay, but look at restaurants that have been there for a point. So if you were to say, I want to eat dal makhni in a restaurant, you go back after 4 months, you actually don't want a new dal makhni taste. You want the 4-month-old dal makhni taste, which is why half the restaurants shut down when the chef changes, right? You don't. So there are some places I would go for what they call testing it out, and that's a fad. So would my business be sustainable on a fad is a separate story. So these are small things which vary from industry to industry and business model, but some of the fundamentals remain the same. Your unit economics, your customer retention rate, your growth rates, these are fundamental. And how quickly are you coming down in terms of cutting down your burn, whether it's so big. So you have money which is available for actual strategic growth, for growing up, opening up new locations, places, because some of these, not every idea works out, but you need to back some of the ideas. You need money for that. And if you're profitable, it allows you to deploy it.
Thanks for that. I think we had such a lovely sort of conversation and setting the stage on entrepreneurial resilience on the first panel. I think I would just sort of end it with like a quick rapid fire just to sort of lighten the mood a little. And I would like to begin with you, Deepak, since you are the gaming guy, okay? Which is your favorite game? And you can't name any game of Nazara.
Mario.
Okay. How are you sort of, what is your personal ambition for open play? How big would that be, the company?
Right, so I think the ambition is two-pronged. One is we want to now we are already building on that ambition to kind of create newer games, diversify, and take it to multiple segments in India and abroad. That's one. And second is to be an AI first organization. So we are already working very intensely to see how, because AI is there. I mean, AI has been there for some time now. There is Gen AI as well. So we are looking at how do we really become powered by AI in the truest way across all the work streams in terms of player experience. So these are two big ambitions.
I can see him smiling when you mentioned AI. He's already smiling because we have him on the AI panel. I'll come to you now, Ashwani. The most overrated entrepreneur in the country right now.
Pass.
Why are you passing this? Okay, tell me the most. Okay, if you were to sort of recall one incident with one entrepreneur which really impressed you, and one entrepreneur which was a huge red flag, and you said, what is it really? Can you recount those experiences?
Okay. So when you look at, so I'll mention one particular part. So we had someone who's set up on a what you call sports analytics side, and they practically bet their house really in terms of land, property, everything in terms of going through the bad phase. And so one is betting. So that's, that shows your resilience part. The second thing was acquiring knowledge and hiring people, paying themselves less and having others being paid more so that it benefits the company in a long term. So that shows that you are caring about the company as a baby rather than looking at your own part. So that's one part, I'll say. Second, in terms of stuff where we felt, so we looked at something in space tech, okay. Brilliant guys from ISRO, practically done everything. Till we dove down on the due diligence and found that no second layer, no third layer. Obviously, someone in late 50s, 60s, if something happens to them, and you're looking at technology being a 5, 10-year, 15-year play, some things which are very intrinsic to a person, and that's a difficult call to take, because all this people who have deep tech or I would say scientists are rare. So you'll not find a cohort of 10 of them, 5 of them. So do you still take a bet? How do you mitigate that risk? And is the person in touch with reality? Because you may be making some beautiful advances and products in your previous avatar with all backings. Would you be getting that, or is it even feasible in the on an entrepreneurial journey?
Okay, I come to you now, Anupam. Maybe like one product of your D2C company which you tried, and you said, oh my God, did I really invest in this company? How bad can it be? Has that happened? You invested, and then you tested the product and you said, oh my God, did I really invest in this company? Must have happened.
Yeah, but then I definitely cannot take a name. I cannot take a name, yes. But then what we do, which is actually a good part, whenever we see that, okay, we invested in that company, I don't know what gut feeling we had that time that we end up investing in that company. But then later, after a certain point of time, when we realize, okay, the company is not doing really good, and these are maybe the parameters or the reasons for it, right? So we also have this segment under Antel, which is called Brand Labs. So what we do, I mean, as of now, like what we do, I mean, recently, I don't want to name that company, but we just asked the founder to get in touch with the Brand Labs team, where we are helping that company in terms of brand positioning, revamping each and everything, like pivoting and everything. So that is one segment that we definitely try to do. Again, if it's still failing, I mean, it's failing. Okay. Nothing can be done there.
Okay. Namit, I come to you as your highest point as an entrepreneur, and one was the lowest point as an entrepreneur.
I think highest point as an entrepreneur is normally when you get some external validation of the kind of quality of service or something that we are in healthcare, etc. and all, and so we have so we actually help doctors document things better and I'm not a medico, so I only built some technology around it. But you know, some of those validations have come. Basically, the technology. So the two answers are tied to each other. I'll just explain why. So we built this company, bought a small company in 2016, then we ramped it up, and then 2019, before COVID actually, our largest customer, 45% of our revenue, which is, I know it's not a good thing to have, but that was historical. They left us, and for whatever reason, they left us. So we were at an existential point because we were on a nice growth curve, and then 45% of that business goes away. Suddenly, what do? Our CEO, who's a very close friend, because there were three of us founders, and he said, "Hey, I'm responsible. I should step down, and let's do what should." And so that's the point of time when having the support of the others helped. And so he said, "No, let's go forward." And then one of us, which is like I pivoted more on the tech side. Earlier we were kind of outsourced it as into someone else. But he said one of the founders need to get involved in it. And that's when I pivoted into that tech role, more of the tech role. We developed that product. It was already there, developed it further, etc., etc. And to the point that was the main reason why a much larger company saw value in us, because the kind of the kind of ROI on that product was super high. There's nothing in the market. So the 2 points were kind of, and finally we exited nicely, right? So I'll tell you the most satisfaction I had, right? We had initially done a friends and family round. It was more friends, few family. And you're always, even though it was a smaller round, it was maybe a couple of $1 million, but we are always very much this thing about it that as like you can fail everyone else and it's your own, but when it's friends' money, family money. So I think we were very satisfied, and we had to go back to them in between when all this thing happened, said, "Hey, it'll be a little bit more delay before we start returning your money and all." So what was most satisfactory was we did this deal and we gave them, obviously that they got interest, and we gave them like it was a debt round mainly, but we gave them almost an equal amount of money back as return, which they were not expecting at all, right? So it was very satisfactory to say, oh, and this thing that, hey, all of them were good. So, it was that.
Okay. Thank you. I think we can just have time for like 2 questions, but can we hit it up for this panel who shared such ideas and sort of conversations with us? Yes, we have a question here. And we have a question with the lady here. Yeah.
Basically, we have a EV company, and I would like some of your feedback also on that. And we have been consistently working on. The company started with to remove the pollution, basically generating out of the petrol bikes and other things. And we have been working on it. Our EV bike goes on us. Not only we added so many this thing, we got NASCOM Design for India award also. And it's the one bike which can climb up 40 degrees slope also. And many things are designed by us. So I'm a co-founder, and the founder has designed it. So we are very good in technology, but we need many other helps. And it's so far bootstrapped, so only our family money is going. So we need some, basically we are looking to scale up in the sense production, because we have a working prototypes and even orders from abroad.
So Deepak, you want to talk about it, how to commercialize a product? Yeah.
So I think we can connect offline. I have
Sure.
spent good time in the automobile EV industry.
Sure,
I was
certainly.
myself an EV entrepreneur prior to my gaming transition.
Sure.
So I mean, there are a lot of things which go into productizing. So
Yeah.
I think
That would be
I'd be happy to
Yeah,
connect
that would
separately.
be wonderful, because we need some help to that.
Sure.
And then I'm sure, I have the videos and everything I can share with you people. I have also the flyers. But it would be really wonderful, to get that help.
Thank you. That is why we have this forum. We have a like-minded person who can connect with
Thank
you.
you very
We had a question at the back with you. Yes.
So just looking as to what edtech as a sector can learn from actually gamification or the gaming tech, that's one. and the fact that there are also two investors over there in the panel. So leaving aside the bad apples in the current edtech sector, so and also mindful of what Shrija has been talking about in terms of the playbook and what all need to be there in a typical impact or a social entrepreneurship sector like edtech. So what is it that your 2 cents on the thesis that can be built in edtech currently?
EdTech.
Yeah. So there are twofold questions. So one that in terms of the AI first approach that you are currently leading at OpenPlay. So what is it that edtech companies can learn from the good practices of, I mean, leaving aside the addiction and the design part of the gaming thing, and secondly from the investment lens as to what is it that edtech companies can learn, or what is the thesis that they can build actually?
Yeah, so on the first thing in terms of
Gamification.
gamification. So I think one, and I would also ask you to check out in Nazara portfolio, we have 2 games and fairly big, which are focused on gamified education for children from 5 years to 12 years. You can check out, and that's very interesting. I think that is a big way to look at education from a gamification lens. I think that entertainment plus education. Second is on the AI side. I think what fundamentally AI is doing is helping personalize experiences in a very, very large way on one side. So you are basically driving your customer experience, your student experience on one side, and coming very close to making it tailor-made for them. Second part is the production side, where it is now automating, it's optimizing various streams, whether it's content generation, whether it is engineering, right? It is automating various fields. So I think it's very important for any company today to edtech or any tech to really start visualizing, because it's early days. It would take time for this technology to kind of stabilize, but in the next 2-3 years, you'll see a lot of implementation happening. But it's very important to see your company as an AI first company, to see what are the streams which can be optimized, which can help you in delivering more with lesser cost, lesser time. On the other side, how can you really take AI and personalize experience to the next level, right? So these are 2 cents from my side.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that was a great answer, guys. We can have a huge round of applause for that. Thank you so much, Deepak. Thank you.
So we have an edutech company which is profitable. The sector has been hammered down, but there are quite a few good companies out there which actually uses AI and ML for its part, because one thing which for any student who goes in, he is unique. So what is his understanding? He would like to have appropriate solutions, whether it's from a practice part or in terms of learning content, being special, unique to them. And that's what the company does. It's a company called Tivra EduTech, known under the brand name Speed Labs.
Yeah. And I would urge everybody to give a huge round of applause to all these people who have traveled from different paths to share their knowledge and insights with you. And what a wonderful panel we had. And thank you everyone for coming in here. Yeah.